want to make sure that everybody hears me. Yes? You nod your heads if you hear me. Okay. Nice to meet you, everyone. I think this is my first time in the live event because I have been participating in a lot of webinars with Next. But actually, I wanted to introduce myself first. And actually, today, I brought a very high technology device, a pointer, and I'm going to be using throughout my presentation. No, I used to use this before, just as a joke. So I'm very active on social media, as you can see. This is something I like to share about myself before getting into the business. I have an Instagram account, actually, where I do something outside of pharma and outside of work, which is painting. So if you want to follow me in Instagram, you can follow me because this is where I get a lot of creativity, thinking, and me time to be able to have this thought process of how can we engage better with customers. And then also, I post a lot of videos in YouTube. I have a YouTube channel with my digital self there, José Ma. So if you want to visit my YouTube channel, you're also welcome. I talk about all these topics, actually. So I really liked the panel discussion that was before me because it's connected to a lot of things that I'm going to be presenting today. If we start again with how the customers are changing, right? Consumers and customers are changing. We look at how Netflix, for example, is changing how consumers prefer to the flexibility of being able to watch whatever they want when they want to. Even changing behaviors that we don't even realize. Like if somebody tells you, watch a 5-hour movie, they're going to be like, maybe not, but you're going to spend 5 hours binge watching a series of 5 episodes, 1 hour each. Right? So these behaviors are changing. The other one that we have been constantly hearing about is how Spotify predicts your mood. And actually, this is something really interesting because, I mean, imagine hooking that to my relationship, for example, right? Like if I can predict the mood of my friend or my wife or etc., then I will have much better relationships, and I don't do anything to upset them. Amazon is also raising the customer expectations, and the consumers are making faster decisions because of the smartphones, and they are expecting business to react in the same way. Right? So this is all research that is out there, that it's affecting our customers, and it's affecting the way that we behave. So we have been talking about this for already several years, but I don't think we have done enough to really connect the dots with us because we have on the right side doctors who are consumers too. So in the previous panel, they were saying, okay, doctors are people too. They're being exposed to those expectations from the last experience they had. And then these companies are spoiling them in those behaviors and bringing those amazing experiences. And on the other side, we are still stuck in omnichannel, pushing doctors and pushing messages to them, branded, unbranded, disease awareness, emailing, webinars, etc. And it's all about that pushing content, right? So I don't think we have found really the connection between how can we serve those needs, right? And this is one of the things that I'm going to be talking about today. Right now, this is how doctors are, right? Trying to dodge all the digital touch points from the pharma industry. So, and I'm also kind of touch on the question before about failures. These examples are things that I have failed myself and that I have been driving in my company in Sanofi. I'm not going to tell you that this is perfect already and that we fixed it and that we found a solution, but I'm going to give you some hints of where we're going towards trying to personalize that experience and meet those expectations. So these are the 4 things that I think that we are doing wrong, but obviously in the title I put it in a more positive way, that things that have to be improved. But I have personally failed in these 4 of them, and I'm going to guide you through it. So the first one, it's segmentation by specialty. And I always make the joke. Do you think that, I don't know, Amazon or these companies make segmentation by professional background? Do they do like, oh, let's do a campaign for architects? And, oh, no, let's launch a campaign for engineers? I don't think so, right? I mean, they know us very well. And this is something that I think we should start to improve. Now, well, this is what I was asking you. I don't know if we have any polling system or not, but the idea is I have been asking this question inside of Sanofi, and there's it's maybe not a right or wrong answer. Maybe they do. I have no idea. But my guessing is that they don't. So this is my first mistake that I'm showing you here, or things that we can improve. We cannot assume that people behave the same just because they have the same professional background, right? And then we launch campaigns of, oh, we're going to focus on neurologists. This is a webinar for neurologists or cardiologists. Insert your specialty, right, in the blank. So I'm just giving you this example because the pharma teams, and me being one of them before, have been talking about, I have heard this sentence so many times. I don't know if you can see it. My specialty is different, right? And there's always like, I talked to the oncology team and they were like, no, oncologists are different. And then I talked to the cardiologist, no, my cardiologists are different, right? And then just because we assume that as a universe, they are different. So this is an example, not real data, illustrative data, but it's just to give you some hints of where is my thinking going. So within the neurologist, you have different levels of segmentation, right, of behaviors. So you have maybe the neurologist A is your loyalist and your neurologist B is your competitor prescriber. Maybe one of them is a cautioner, the other one is an early adopter. Maybe one prefers face-to-face, the other one prefers remote. So if you see, in all of the points, they are completely different, right? So this is the first thing that I try to change. We made some progress, and this was done in the consumer healthcare division because I was in consumer before until last year, and I was doing HCP marketing. So we were trying to move towards forgetting about the specialty and actually going deeper. So the second part, it's we always get to the same persona type. And this is one of my favorite exercises because I have seen so many researches in the past 5 or 6 years, and we always get into the same outcome. You have probably seen it in your companies. We always have an early adopter, a traditionalist, and a digital doctor, or a guideline follower, whatever. You name it, right? And they're all generic. And then I always have this conversation with brand teams. We're doing persona research, and these persona research are different. And then they spend thousands of euros, right, or dollars, whatever you want. And then you end up having, I'm going to give you one specific example, which I'm trying to address right now. I have a team within my company, within Sanofi, that they have the same customer. They are all targeting the same specialty, but they have 4 different brand teams targeting the same doctor. And guess what? The 4 brand teams have 4 sets of personas. And if you put them together, they fit into these 3, actually, well, more or less, kind of. Right? But then if I consolidate the amount of money that these global teams did to get into that research, and then I go to the local teams and they tell me, well, you know what? Those personas didn't work for my market because this is the next sentence. No, my market is different. So, no. So they don't fit, and they do more research, and they end up coming with similar outcomes, So again, I'm telling you, I don't have the perfect formula today, but I'm telling you this is what I'm trying to fix and do better. And I'm going to give you an example of what I did in my previous job later on. So this is the one that I was telling you. My brand is different syndrome. And this is the example that I was giving you before. So imagine that you have maybe 3 brands targeting the same customer, and then the 3 of them are going to find the early adopter, the brand number 2 calls them innovative, the brand 3 calls them pioneer, right? But they are the same type of personality. And the other one is traditionalist versus the old-fashioned versus the conservative. And then the cautious, the risk avoider, and the watchful. It's always the same. So what I'm trying to achieve, and maybe you can join me at some point, is to try to evolve this persona research and find examples of how we can turn them around, because I don't think we should be spending money in doing more persona research all the time in the whole industry. From what I see in your reactions, you probably have the same experience. So maybe we can go into a better understanding of the customers beyond this generic, typical pharma understanding, right? So the fourth one, it's we are still planning and delivering linear customer journeys. And imagine, so we do all that research, we do all those personas, we tag them in the CRM, etc. But then we end up doing just one single journey for everybody. You know, you bunch them together and then boom, launch an email so that you can invite the doctor to attend the webinar. And then if the doctor doesn't connect, well, send a reminder, you know, and then push them to register, you know, and then, oh, no, the doctor didn't register, send a WhatsApp, you know, but to register, you know. And then my favorite quote, but Chema, no, we don't push them to attend webinar live. We send them the recording. We're very personalized, you know. So, and then my one of the topics that I have been talking recently is about vanity metrics, which are, you know, all the number of doctors who came to the webinar. And we say, okay, we had 15,000 doctors in my webinar. Great, let's continue, right? So let's continue doing webinars. But there is no thinking about how can we do that journey personalized, right? So how can we switch this linear journey into becoming more customer-centric? And then building on the conversation of the previous on the previous panel, how can we give the flexibility to the doctors to choose the way they want to engage with us, rather than push them to register all the time to the webinar, right? This is baby steps that we took in my previous job, like I said. Well, which is obviously something that you have probably seen and maybe you have even tried, doing persona-based campaigns, which is the basic or most natural first step. So we have, for example, 3 different segments: the innovative neurologist competitor prescriber, the old-fashioned neurologist or loyalist, and the risk avoider neurologist competitor prescriber. So if you see, for example, one of the things that I have been pushing in Sanofi, it's those personas should always be connected to a behavioral change, right? You don't do just a customer journey to push them to a webinar, or you don't give them content or a personalized experience just for the sake of it, but you want to meet those expectations so that you can change their behaviors, right? And then they can change behaviors and provide the care that they need to their patients. So in this case, for example, we have 3 different behavioral changes: switch to our brand, ring fence our prescription, or again, switch to our brand. If you see, they have similarities, but then the way that we will engage with them is different. So for that one, we tried email and the webinar, and then we measured customer experience, which today it's not the, I normally do another presentation about this. It's not the key focus of this presentation, but I always talk about the digital equivalent of a smile. I have been talking about that since 2020. So when you know, when you are doing a face-to-face engagement, you know that the doctor, it's happy or sad or angry or frustrated. But in digital, how do you know that? How do you find that digital equivalent of a smile? And I guess, again, I haven't found the answer, the complete answer, but my guess is that it's on customer experience measurement. And ideally, these different ways of engaging with them can drive them to having a better experience rather than inviting them all to the same webinar. And if you see that the one that was at the bottom, which is the risk avoider, was the longest to be convinced on the customer experience and on the change in behavior, because the risk avoider, it's by definition, they don't try new things very fast, so they are more difficult to convince. So these were one of the baby steps, and still linear journeys, right? So the real challenge is what happens when you have the 3 brands that I was telling you, you're targeting the 3 doctors, but you plan the webinars all on the same month. You know, all the brands are planning the touch point, and then the doctor receive one email for the webinar, another email from the webinar, and etc. And then they don't know what to do. There's one webinar after the other. Maybe the first one is going to be, okay, great, I had a great experience, but the others maybe not, right? Because it's the same type of pushing them to come to different webinars and working in silos. So, silos everywhere, right? So it's all over the place. So again, this is one of my failures. I'm still trying to break the silos. I'm not telling you that I have done it already. So let's go back to the topic before we go to the conclusions. I was showing you the innovative neurologist competitor prescriber, and now I'm adding a percentage there. So an open rate of 60% of the emails to come to the webinar or registration. So what to do next? Did you send a reminder? Should we send a reminder now that we know that we should not be pushing them into linear journeys? Well, no, maybe not, right? Let's try a different thing, right? Please no. So let's think about that the open rate is 60%. So let's think about the remaining 40%, right? So don't focus already on the 60 because they're already there. Maybe the remaining, just gather them as a group. And then suddenly you have a micro segment, right? Now you have the 60% that opened in the email that were already registered to the webinar, maybe because they prefer email for that specific engagement. But the remaining 40%, maybe you send them a WhatsApp and then they react. And then you see that it's not, I'm not talking about registering, right? Maybe you send them another piece of content, a summary, another thing, but you see that they react better to WhatsApp. And this is already a micro segment. And then you see that maybe you send them an infographic with the key points of the event that you want to deliver. And then you see that you had an open rate of 80. Well, then the remaining 20%, maybe they don't want to be engaged neither through WhatsApp, neither through email. Maybe they prefer face-to-face, and maybe you can try. And I'm telling you, we did an experiment on this one. We did, again, not with neurologists or anything like that. It was another specialty, but I'm not allowed to share those informations because they're confidential. But we did some experiments like this, and then we started seeing that the doctors were giving us better feedback in every touch point. So in the end, they all had a positive experience because not all of them had the same information and the same pushing to the webinar, but rather we were trying different channels and different formats, isolating the groups that were not engaged. So to finalize, just this is my take-home message. What I talked about during my presentation. It's not about digital transformation or etc. I think it's about becoming adaptable to the customer needs because they're changing more constantly now because of these experiences they're having. Now those expectations are evolving very fast. And we need to become adaptable. And then we have to evolve the segmentation, right? So as I was saying, it's a model that has to reflect the differences of micro segments of doctors. And we are not going to get there if we don't stop thinking about my specialty is different, right? So we need to think about that evolution of the segmentation. We need to change the mindset of the brand teams. This is a big one because again, and I can tell you, I was in marketing for a long time, and I was one of them. I was one of them saying my persona is different, and I was all focused on what are my brand messages, what is my branded content that I want to push, rather than looking at how are the customers engaging with me and how can I convince them better. So the mindset is a big topic. It's very easy to mention, but that shift is really tricky. And finally, avoid linear customer journeys. So, and also avoid the vanity metrics that come with them. Instead, try to find a digital equivalent of a smile and try to personalize your campaigns based on the data that you find, even if it's in a manual way. Even if you use an Excel spreadsheet and then you just look at the numbers and analyze them in a brand team meeting, and then you decide what is the next best action, that's even a step forward. Yeah, and with that, I would like to close my presentation and say thank you.